Well, let's start with the short-run total cost. We have finished the part where we have described the average variable cost. In case of short-run total cost, basically, we just need to add to the variable cost the fixed cost. So if variable cost of producing 4 airplanes is, for example, $320 million, while fixed cost is $200 for airplane. Actually, I mean here I have made a mistake. Then short-run total cost of producing an airplane for airplane is 520. Actually, this should be 20. I should correct it. $1 million. So when you increase number of units produced, short-run total cost increase, and that increase is equal to the marginal cost. Because basically when you increase number of units you produce from 4 to 5, for example, fixed cost won't increase, so the only thing that will increase is variable cost, and variable cost increase by an amount equal to the increase the marginal cost of the fifth plane. So increase in short run total cost is still equal to the marginal cost. So the only difference is the total amount, because you have this pre-amount which is independent of the units you produce, which is the fixed cost within the short-run total cost. So the difference between short-run total cost and the variable cost, total variable cost, is always equal to fixed cost, basically. Well, this means if you want to calculate the short-run average total cost, you need to divide short-run average total cost to the number of airplanes. So for when you produce 1 unit, it is 300. When you produce 2 units, this is 190. When you produce 3 units, it's approximately 90, a little bit less than it, basically. So that's the basic operation you do. So in the end, it is, if you think short-run average total cost is the sum of average variable cost plus the, as you see here, the total cost is equal to variable cost plus fixed cost. When you divide the total cost to quantity, then it is kind of like you add up variable cost divided by quantity and fixed cost divided by the quantity. So the difference between short-run average total cost and average variable cost is the average fixed cost for any quantity. But since the average variable cost is average fixed cost is continuously decreasing, as you see here, the difference between the short-run average total cost and the average variable cost is also decreasing. So you can see it here. The difference between them is decreasing as you produce more units. So this is the first characteristic of average variable cost. The short-run average total cost, I'm sorry. The second characteristic is, as you see here, the basic thing that is true for average variable cost is also true for the short-run average total cost. When marginal cost is lower than the average short-run average total cost, adding more units will decrease the short-run average total cost, since adding the additional units costs less than the average cost in this case. And basically, as long as you see here up to this point, as long as adding new unit is cost less than the average cost, adding new unit will decrease the cost. So at the sixth unit is still 120, which is less than 124. But when adding new units costs more than the average cost, in that case, adding new units will increase the costs. So, well, this means basically the short-run average total cost is minimum at the point where it intersects with the marginal cost and when marginal cost has a positive slope. So the quantity, the production level at which the short-run average total cost is minimum is more than the quantity which makes the average variable cost minimum. Why? Because, well, the short-run average total cost is always higher than the average variable cost. No, you need to add the average fixed cost to average variable cost to find the short-run average total cost. Which means at the point when marginal cost is becomes higher than the average variable cost and starts to pull average variable cost up, it will still be below the short-run average total cost, and it will continue to pull the short-run average total cost down. But ultimately, it will also pass the short-run average total cost and starts to pull also the short-run average total cost curve up. So these are the basic characteristics of the short-run average total costs. So the overall cost structure looks like this. Average variable cost continues increasing. Short-run average total cost and average variable costs have U-shaped and are at their minimum level when they intersect with the marginal cost curve. So what does this mean? What does this type of cost curve tells us? The most important thing it tells us is for each company or for an average company in each sector, in the short run, there is a certain level of production where the costs are minimum. If the producers aim to produce more than this amount, average cost increases, expansion of production becomes more difficult after producers pass this point when the costs are minimum. So we have this beautiful structure which forces our companies to produce at the point when the short-run average total cost, of course, I mean the more important thing is the total cost company pays. Short-run average total cost is minimum. This is the point when you can keep the costs at the minimum level. And so your revenue per unit you produce will be higher for as long as the price remains fixed. Of course, we don't know whether it is that way, but at least in terms of costs, you are most advantageous when you are producing the short-run average total at the point when short-run average total cost is at its minimum. So after you pass this point, when you produce more, your short-run average total cost will continuously increase. And basically, I mean, especially when you when you produce a lot more than the cost minimizing point, then you will be increasingly at disadvantage. So, when there's a lot more demand than the cost minimizing point, this type of cost structure, at least in the short run, forces the size of companies to remain small, because if a company attempts to have a large size, then I mean its costs will rise too high, so it won't get any profits. So the company sizes will remain small. This might be a beautiful structure because I mean you prevent monopolies and you maintain the competition. But the question is whether this type of cost structure is also maintained in the long run. And in that sense, there is a discussion within the literature between the economists, basically. Although in mainstream, there is still two type of cost structures which are more or less accepted. We will see in this course, one of them is taught in your book, so we will take that one as your main model, but I will also talk briefly on the second one, and I will also talk on an alternative type of cost structure also. So the main question is what is happening in the long run when everything is when companies are able to adjust their capital or infrastructure and machinery, basically. So the main characteristic of the long run is both capital and labor can vary. Firms can sell their machines or buildings or buy new machines and buildings. However, technology is fixed. So the hypothetical imagination you might have of the long run is the company is able to see the demand, I mean, the quantity that is demanded from it at each different price level, and considering this demand, it will either decide to produce more or less. And whatever production level it chooses a type of infrastructure and machinery that fits perfectly with this production level. So it will basically, whenever it decides to produce a little bit more or less, it will at least modify its infrastructure building and the machinery to some extent to fit it better, produce that quantity, that additional quantity, that needed quantity level in a more efficient sense. So we won't go into detail of that, but basically it's assumed that for each type of quantity, there is a different type of plant. Plant means, I mean, production facility with infrastructure and the machinery. So for each quantity, our company will make some variation in its production facility and its machinery. So the main question is, as I said, the economies of the scale factor, and we have already talked on them. Increasing in terms of scale is when you increase the amount, when you want to increase the amount of quantity. Basic definition is when you double amount of capital you use, machinery, infrastructure, and labor, double all factors of production. The quantity you produce increase more than double. So when you increase scales, your returns are more than the amount you increase your scale. So your returns are increasing when you produce more and more. Another way to define it could be when you produce 10 units and decide to produce 20 units, this additional 20 units will cost you less than the initial 10 units. In the case of increasing returns to scale. When you're decreasing returns to scale, it is the opposite, which means when you double all your, let's say, factors of production, the production level increase less than the double amount. Or when you increase your production level from 10 to 20, the additional 10 costs more than the initial 10. And constant returns to scale means actually when you double your factors of production, the production level also doubles, which means the initial 10 and the next 10 units will cost exactly the same when you increase your production level from 10 units to 20 units. Basically, you can see here the representations of the example of these different returns to scale cases. And basically, since we don't have labor as the only factor, but all factors can vary. When doubling all factors are basically increasing, giving us increasing returns, long-run average cost curve will decrease because your returns are increasing per every additional unit produced. If the returns are decreasing, long-run average cost curve will increase. I mean, it will have the cost will increase when you increase. The average cost will increase when you produce more. We are talking on average cost, not the total cost. Note that. So on average, the cost will increase when you have decreasing returns. And when you have a constant returns, long-run average costs are constant. Okay, you can see this example, which is very straightforward in my opinion. So the main question is, what is the returns to scale in economic system? Well, for example, according to Marx, the returns to scale is always increasing. It is like this curve, which means larger companies always are more advantageous. Other views, including the mainstream view, we will see in the next part.